Assalamu alaikum. This is my next episode on Gwadar. I've had two main comments. One is that my videos are probably a bit too long, and secondly, I need to do them in English. So hopefully, I'm going to try to make them more succinct. And so let's get started. This video focuses on some general things around and very technical things, I guess, around what CPEC is, understanding the Silk Road, understanding China's involvement and to what level, and understanding how that fits in with Gwadar and the Gwadar master plan. So we hear a lot about China Pak Economic Corridor or CPEC. What is the intent of CPEC? First of all, a lot of people are unclear, and I myself is sometimes unclear on some of the details. As you'll see, it's not very clear cut. CPEC is intended to rapidly upgrade Pakistan's required infrastructure. And remember, the word here is infrastructure, and strengthen its economy by the construction of modern transportation networks, numerous energy projects, and special economic zones. So the emphasis there is on three things: transportation networks, uh, energy projects, and SEZs or special economic zones. Transportation could mean not just physical transportation of good, but communication transportation from one part of the country to another as well. Here you can see China's mission of connecting the world for trade, and you see China in red there. Here, that region, China region, Pakistan there in green, and you could see a line from the Xinjiang province or Kashgar in that side of China into through Pakistan to Gwadar, and that link into Sri Lanka and that side, Bangladesh and so on and so forth, and down into Africa, and also that connectivity into Europe through Egypt and all the way up to France. The area in green is CPEC. The larger aspect of all this is, I guess, termed the Silk Road or One Belt, One Road initiative. CPEC is the bit in green here, and that's the three things that I talked about: transportation, special economic zones, and energy projects to basically pull Pakistan out and out of its, I guess, poverty, and become a state that can start its economic development. Also, CPEC is very fluid, especially over the last year or so. Obviously, when China's dominance in this region increases, that means basically a conflict of interest with some of the other powers that have been dominant in this region, especially the United States, the dominance of India, and so on and so forth. So, on a daily basis, you could say, new deals are being signed, new alliances are taking place, and Pakistan needs its connectivity. Obviously, it needs the infrastructure, but that infrastructure is no good on its own. It needs that connectivity, and it's looking at expanding through Afghanistan. So it needs a stable Afghanistan into the Central Asian states that way. It's looking into its broadening its reach within Iran and all along around into Turkey and stuff. And you've heard about some of the new initiatives around the train line and so on and so forth. Um, uh, China on its part is trying to expand into Iran, and you've seen a for 400,000, $600,000 billion deal over the next 25 of 25 years or so, and it's looking at importing that oil, whether some of that is through Pakistan into the underdeveloped area of China, or whether some of it is goes through traditional route into the other part of China. That's yet to be seen. But China, what it means from Pakistan is that those alliances, even Pakistan's reach into Moscow and alliances with Moscow and so on and so forth, all those are being looked at. So what is considered part of CPEC today, what is a priority today, that will change, but all of it will inshallah develop, but it'll take time. It's not going to be everything on day one, and those priorities will change. So I guess the biggest question is, what is the link between CPEC and Gwadar? Gwadar is at the juncture of basically it's a deep sea port, and it is essentially the gateway to that trade between, let's say, China's trade between Africa and China's trade between the Middle East. It has other ways. Traditionally, it carries on trading through the existing routes, but it gives them a secondary route, and in some ways, for some of that trade, it'll give them reduction in time and costs. For Pakistan, it means that Gwadar can develop into an international port, and where Pakistan can also benefit from that development. China is not here to develop Pakistan. It is here to develop its link to rest of the African states, to the African states and the Middle East, and it realizes it needs to modernize Pakistan, some of Pakistan, and yes, it is happy for Pakistan to benefit from it, but it has to be a win-win situation both for China and Pakistan. Nobody's doing it for free for the others. China is helping Pakistan, but that help does mean that China needs to secure its routes, and its first priority is to develop parts of China, especially the Xinjiang province, where the Uyghurs and other a lot of Muslim population is in that region as well, as an aside, and so China wants to develop it. Pakistan needs to develop it. Remember, I talked about CPEC not being Gwadar. Some people think CPEC, Gwadar, one of the same. CPEC is a bunch of a number of infrastructure and energy related projects. If you look at this map here, and I'll go into some detail. First, look at some of these. A lot of these are, if you're looking at them, energy projects to give you additional electricity, power plants. There's this one here, there's this one here, and as you go down it, third core plants, electricity plants, a lot of that. These, I mean, as you can see now, I've highlighted at least 11 of these. These are power plants for the supply of electricity to a lot of Pakistani region. Similarly, there are a number of transportation connectivity related projects, and these are all across Pakistan. But specifically, if you wanted to look at Gwadar, for instance, then a lot of these projects, and let's look at one by one. So you have two power plants giving you hopefully around 300 megawatts of electricity over the and to be completed by the end of 2022. So electricity is a major concern within Gwadar. And there's a China Park Friendship Hospital. Obviously, there will be a lot of Chinese workers working in Gwadar. There currently are, and there'll be obviously an influx of other workers and stuff. So the hospital is a major priority. Currently, any affluent person in and around Gwadar, Tarbat, and this side of Balochistan essentially goes to Karachi for any any medical treatment and stuff. In fact, a lot of well-off people living in this region have either houses or flats in Karachi. Even some of those spend the month of Ramadan there because obviously they have more facilities, electricity, and so on and so forth. Some of which is not as well provided for in Gwadar or its surrounding areas. So Gwadar is still developing. Bear that in mind. Um, and then obviously other plants. There's a construction of breakwater. Essentially, water is in short supply. So building and also there are terminals for fishing people and so on and so forth that needs to be built. But yeah, the which is the breakwaters. There's the freshwater treatment water facilities to make sure that there's plenty of water for the population, the current population as well as the future population. Again, something that should be completed by the end of 2022. There's the construction of East Bay Expressway. That is essentially the port area of Gwadar, joining that to the to the to the highway, essentially keeping that away from the rest of the development of Gwadar. It'll be a dedicated freeway linking to the highway for the port areas, and also other projects around the infrastructure for free zone and stuff. Um, Park China Technical and Vocational Institute to make sure that they can meet the demand of the workforce by training and providing the necessary technical know-how. So, as we mentioned, Gwadar is nowhere near a city that can cater for its people, whether it's water, energy, or infrastructure. And the investment as part of CPEC are to ensure that the operations of the free zone, the Gwadar port, can be handled in an effective way. It isn't about the development of high rises, the tourism, or whatever else. It is specifically aimed in this phase at making sure that the core infrastructure in Gwadar can support the port facilities. So I talked about electricity, for instance, and we talked about 300 megawatts of energy by end of 2022. What does that actually translate to? It translates to around 1 megawatt to around 1,000 homes. Um, and 300 megawatts would lead to about 3 lakh homes, which is about 1.2 million people. And that doesn't consider the requirement for the industry, ports, airport, the new airport, which should be the biggest in Pakistan, at least, the needs of the tourism or any other high utilization of electricity. So bear in mind, Gwadar isn't going to grow to 10 million people all of a sudden. We just do not have the infrastructure there. It will grow, it needs to grow, but it will grow as a port city. And there's and I'll talk about this in some later episodes. There's a distinct difference between being a port city and port related activity and port related workforce or people or development or growth, as opposed to a tourism city or some other city and growth of some other city in that way. So just bear that in mind. Energy was first area, and second area we want to look at that's part of the CPEC is these special economic zones, and the third area we'll look at is the connectivity side of things. So, what are these special economic zones? Currently, if you look at the CPEC website or something, you'd see 9 different ones across the country. Up north, we have Nowshera, we have Tata in Sindh, we have Quetta, Faisalabad, Islamabad, Karachi, Azad Kashmir, again up north in Fatah area, and up north in Gilgit Baltistan. So looking at that, in red here, you have 4 in either Fatah area, Sarhad, northwest frontier province, or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. You have Gilgit Baltistan, and you have Azad Jammu Kashmir Mirpur. These are the 4 northern, if we include the technology one in Islamabad, which has recently been inaugurated, I guess. You have 5 of them up in the north there. We have 1 in Faisalabad. That's the one that's received the most coverage, I guess, from the media. And then you have 1 in Quetta side near Quetta, Boston district. As you can see, 2 in Karachi, but if you look at Gwadar or near there, you don't have any special economic zones. That is surprising to me as well. You'd expect if the growth of Gwadar, or if Gwadar is to take off as an industrial city, and not a port city, as an industrial city, then the expectation should be that there should be an industrial zone of some sort here, right? There's the free zone currently for the Chinese. There's the airport, the biggest airport of Pakistan coming there. There's potential for tourism there. But it isn't going to be an industrial hub. Yes, logistics and transportation and those areas may flourish there. Obviously, being next to the port, being the biggest airport, and in future connectivity via rail and road. And I say in future connectivity via rail and road, so let's wait for that. It's not going to be an industrialized city. It's not going to be the model of, I don't know. Anyways, we'll talk about it more in a bit more detail as we talk about the connectivity side of things. It's not an industrial city. There aren't going to be IT parks. Not with the basically special, not with the category of special economic zones. As I mentioned, we have this port area and a free zone that is essentially allocated to China, Overseas Port Holding Company. China would have free zone there. Pakistani, there is some talk about special economic zone in the rest of where all this rest of this area is, which is essentially just north of the new town, or maybe Newtown will be part of it. Maybe the whole of that Gwadar area will be part of that special economic zone. There's talk about it. People are talking about it, but there isn't really anything concrete to say that Gwadar will be part of a special economic zone, other than the Chinese and maybe the Jeddah side of things further down past the airport. This is Gwadar Port Authority, and this is the gist of their. This is on their website, and the gist is that there is nothing approved yet, but Gwadar is likely to be given the status of SEZ, the whole of Gwadar, or that area there. I mean, According to they have 100 kilometer width there and a 20 kilometer, and that also shows what I've been trying to say, that Gwadar isn't small; it's massive. In order to facilitate rapid commercial and economic development, Gwadar will be declared a special economic zone for a certain period. That period is yet to be determined. The size is likely to cover the city of Gwadar and the East area currently planned and foreseen. The specific incentive regime is likely to include general tax holidays, no VAT, and generous incentives pertaining to business ownership and employment of foreigners. Again, um, very vague. And I guess at this point in time, being vague is probably the best we can expect. Um, as the thinking is more developed. Again, if you look at those energy projects, 300 megawatt by the end of 2022, uh, jumping into making Gwadar and grow faster than it has the capability to sustain itself is probably counterproductive. I personally probably would not see a special economic zone within Gwadar for a while yet. Not until Gwadar is able to support its existing population and maybe a 20% year increase year by year or something. Only then I would assume that any sane government would give it the special zone economic zone status. The next area is connectivity. So we talked about two areas: energy, special economic zones, which are spread across Pakistan, but hardly anything in Gwadar. Remember, we're talking about CPEC from the lens of Gwadar, so hence I keep repeating Gwadar. And then this third area is interesting. Obviously, China is interested in Gwadar for its because it provides a route into Africa and the Middle East, and a quicker route when it looks at Xinjiang, its western provinces, which are the least developed of the Chinese parts of China. The thinking from Pakistan is that we have existing motorways and so on and so forth, and the first part of that connectivity will be to utilize the existing motorways and not to start rebuilding the whole of that infrastructure. So let's look at that in a bit more detail. So if you look at the railway network of Pakistan, and Gwadar, if I was to spotlight, so Gwadar is here on the left. You got Karachi, and if you look at Karachi, you've got the this cap. There is the existing route. This one here that goes via sort of Multan, Faisalabad, Rawalpindi, and that way up. And there is this what we can call the eastern route through Sakkar and so on and so forth. And if you look at Karachi, both these routes are being maintained, they've been upgraded, their capacity is to be expanded and stuff. So we are looking at, as part of CPEC, increasing that link between Karachi and the north, Rawalpindi, Lahore, Faisalabad, and all the way up, and then that new existing railway up all the way into Kashi and sort of China. Through the other route, interestingly here, Zab, Quetta, and Taftan and into Iran. That route will be necessary for the Iranian oil. Gwadar does not sit at any of those routes. there is a chance that some railway will be built either to connect Gwadar into Karachi or to connect it to Jacobabad, or just like the road route, which goes via Terabad, Hushab, Panjgur, and so on and so forth. But that direct connectivity of Gwadar to China, on a map, in a logical map, we see that connectivity. That's neither being planned, not from a railway perspective, and that's neither that. Remember, if mass transit of oil or whatever uh, heavy goods is to pass through Gwadar for China, then I would have assumed a really heavyweight rail link from Gwadar into China, right? Um, the ship cruise that was recently blocked in the Suez Canal, I think somebody mapped that out. That ship, if we were to transport the whole of those containers onto trucks, the lane of the trucks would be 365 kilometers or something. Just that one lorry after another, if you were to put next to each other, that would be 300 plus kilometers or thereabouts. Now, Gwadar doesn't even have the road infrastructure to do that. The Middle Eastern oil um, is unlikely to go via Gwadar unless there's a big massive link, a rail link from Gwadar to at least to Quetta and then and further up. Currently, nothing is in the pipeline. So very quickly, just to recap, two alternative schemes from Gwadar. One via Tarabat and linking to existing routes at Jacobabad, Quetta. The other linking to Karachi along the existing coastal run route. Nothing built, and CPEC Gov doesn't have any concrete status of what's going to be built. In short, connectivity to Gwadar will take time. For the Chinese, the priority is the development of the port, and other projects and planning are suffering. I mean, the airport is there, so maybe it's only for the light goods for now. I don't know. Or maybe certain stuff that China needs through the road route. I don't know. Similarly, you can see the highway network. We have the existing coastal highway from Karachi to Gwadar, across to Jivlin into Iran. There's the other highway that goes from Gwadar via Turbat, Hushab, Kashgar into Quetta in that way. In the red here are the short-term projects here from Karachi that build up motorway into Sakkar, so that can link into this priority project from Sakkar into Multan, and then obviously the from Multan to Faisalabad, which is already being done, and also there's a short-term project from Multan into Lahore, and then that will connect to the M1 motorway, M1 M from basically Lahore to Islamabad, that motorway to Peshawar. Further up north again, that those roads are either priority or existing projects that are being built are continuing into China, and hopefully we'll see this route across Afghanistan into the Central Asian states as well in future. So there is a major connectivity concern from Gwadar. There is no, I mean, these roads are single roads, 2 lane, one way, the other way. There is very light traffic on them right now, but if they are to sustain billions of dollars of trade, then obviously those routes need to be upgraded. Currently, there is very little understanding, I guess, very little common knowledge of what's happening in that. The airport is there. What is the purpose of that airport? The new airport? It's where is it, just to transport Chinese workers across and back? Are we vying for being a competition to Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Qatar and stuff, and trying to take back the lost glory of Karachi by making that the long haul stopover? Have we got enough? Are we negotiating contracts with 20 different airlines or whatever? Are we making that the airport for our tourism industry? And are we expanding tourism or not? I wish there was more clarity. I have not found any. And the third aspect of that route is, so we talked about rail, we talked about road, and the next one is the communication, the fiber optic stuff. In 2018, I'm told, from China into Islamabad, that fiber optic had been completed. But if you look at further, all the way down to Gwadar or something, currently there is nothing. And before I look into that, if you look here, Pakistan here on the right here, and let me spotlight. This is Gwadar here, and this is Karachi. Karachi has multiple links from multiple cities across the world. But if you look at Gwadar, you only have one link that serves Karachi and Gwadar together, probably from 2 locations. 60% of the links, by the way, come through, I think, India, for Pakistan. And then once it hits Gwadar, there is no connectivity to the rest of the country from Gwadar. Look at some of the Middle Eastern countries. Look at India. Sorry, you can't see India from here. Look at Qatar, how many links and so on so there are. Kuwait. And by comparison, if you look at, let's say, the UK, and you can see the number of links up and down South UK here, in Wales and stuff. Guernsey, a popular, where I'm, I guess I had their digital modernization of the IT across the whole state. You can see the number of links into UK, to Ireland, to France, and so on and so forth. London, west of England, and Midland, Liverpool, Manchester, that area, up north, Scotland. The amount of links, connectivity, fiber optics, whatever you want to call it, is by comparison, Pakistan has 2 links, and third one coming from China now. We are way far behind, and so what are we doing with it? I mean, and this is the world map, and look at the number of links and so on and so forth, and Pakistan is probably 1 link there that's mentioned. So yeah, what are we doing for Pakistan to connect Pakistan? So let's look at the links in 3 parts, and also let's look at what China is doing. So China has set up this Digital Silk Road initiative a couple of years ago. It has signed 14 different countries across Africa, Egypt, France, all that way. And only now, once China is ready for that, it's already built this portion between Egypt and France. It is extending that to Pakistan, because it is through Pakistan, I guess, that China will build that link. And it comes in 3 parts. So the 850 kilometer northern section that we looked at earlier, up from China into Rawalpindi, Islamabad, has been operational since 2018, and that links the Xinjiang Uyghur autonomous region, as we talked about. And this was built by the Pakistan Army, I guess. £37 million link, um, and gives Pakistan that that secure private link with China for its defense needs as well as obviously business needs. And then you have that next section between Rawalpindi and Karachi. Remember, I talked about Rawalpindi and Karachi and not Rawalpindi and Gwadar. And this is a 240 million project with partnering with Hawaii Telecoms, approved in January 21, and hopefully next year or so that should be built, and that will give us that full communication line from Karachi all the way to China. And then this third part here that links both Karachi and Gwadar into the rest of that digital Silk Road. That's only agreed at the beginning of this year, and that work would, from the news so far I've got, that work would have started in March. I don't know whether it started or not, but that's a 15 that 15,000 has been already built. So essentially, again, from Gwadar's perspective, that will be good news because that connectivity will extend into Gwadar via the sea route and back into China if that way, but connectivity to Middle East, Europe and Africa will be provided for Gwadar, giving it a second link. Unfortunately, my episodes keep getting bigger and bigger, and I just want to wrap it up by, what does that mean for those people who want to do real estate investment in Gwadar? So we looked at the Gwadar plan, master plan. Most of it is around commercial, residential, industrial zones, and so on and so forth. There's a very detailed PDF, and I don't want to go into it, that talks about the landlines, the road network, the sewage network, the electricity network, the gas pipelines, and so on and so forth, each on a different map and stuff. We are at a stage where we're trying to build the core infrastructure that would meet China's requirements initially, of the port, the hospital, the vocational programs, the electricity, and so on and so forth, and the water shortage, or of the local fishermen communities. Part of the CPEC was the delivery of the master plan design, not the implementation. So all those things I talked about, energy, the pipelines, the road networks, the downtown building, whatever else, funding has to come from somewhere. And naturally, those areas that are close to the existing development are likely to benefit initially, with long-term benefit coming to the other areas as and when there are funds, or if there are some clever initiatives that allow for a really high footfall into Gwadar, Gwadar's economy booming through tourism and similar things, that allows the Gwadar authorities enough money, enough capital to invest and extend Gwadar beyond a small port city. Yes, the airport will help. Yes, clean water will help. Yes, electricity will help. But ongoing resources through basically investors coming into Gwadar, projects being started in Gwadar that will bring the required revenue, whether it's through tourism, people footfall, or through logistics, or through online retailers, or whatever, that will give Gwadar enough financial finances, money for it to grow. Um, if you look at InvestGov PK, it talks about a number of areas like food processing, logistic, textiles, automobiles, information tech, housing and construction, tourism, and hospitality, areas where private and investors can help Gwadar grow. Gwadar isn't going to grow on its own. It needs us Pakistanis. It needs our entrepreneurial skills. It needs our dedication. It needs us to do for something for the country for it to grow. And growth of Gwadar, I link that to the growth or a big hand in the growth of Pakistan. There are opportunities, real estate, construction, business, obviously the construction of Gwadar, even those regions in and around the central area, Newtown, Sangar, whatever. But also, the tourism areas opposite the airport is one big, massive area that needs development for tourists. Obviously, hotel businesses and so on and so forth. Yes, both investment is needed, entrepreneurs are needed, and then the next area is shipping related industry, online retail. Obviously, cold storage is one. Um, Logistics, bringing goods from rest of Pakistan or bringing goods from Middle East, storing, redistributing them across the whole country, and so on and so forth. Gwadar has a major part to play in that. Whether you want to import, export cars or motorbikes or tomatoes or ketchup or whatever, or food products or non-food products. All that storage related industry, logistics, whatever else, there's a lot of scope and potential there. Tourism, hospitality, obviously, and that doesn't just mean building hotels, but from supplying towels to breakfast to cereals to butter to whatever else, taxiing service or parks or local handicrafts for the tourists, anything. There's a huge potential to bring the local flavor of Balochistan into Gwadar and sell it for the local people to improve the state of those people living in and around Gwadar. Supply chain, I mentioned, chicken, tomato, eggs, whatever, dairy products, to a whole bunch of other things, ornaments, handicrafts, so on and so forth. Gwadar needs an impetus and also the labor as well. It needs people to think of those ideas and bring those into Gwadar and supply those to the tourists and so on and so forth in the coming years and something. So there's a huge potential to build that market. IT and education. I talked about Gwadar being at the epicenter, I guess, of that digital Silk Route. Pakistan does not really have a data center. I believe there is one probably being worked out. But I was surprised, and there's an article that a couple of years back on this. But Pakistan needs data centers. It needs the and what better place than Gwadar, at that juncture, not only to supply the needs of Pakistan, but we should be looking at supplying the needs of the Central Asian states as well, in terms of data, in terms of storage, in terms of data mining, all those areas, not just mobile phones and stuff. There is a big, big, massive market for this, and if we are to compete with the rest of the world, then we need to grow in this area. Um, Multimedia generally, and education. I mean, we can export. Once we have that digital, fiber optics and high speed network and so on and so forth. Um, Education, remote education, or even universities and specialist schools and colleges or whatever, attracting foreign students from the Middle East, from other countries. It's a lucrative business. We just need to tap the right market. Health and social work, obviously. There's a large potential for that. And investment. People have ideas, but not funding. Some people have money, but not ideas. It's how I think Gwadar should be a melting pot where we can bring both those two together. Issues, challenges, obviously, there's the issue of water in Gwadar. There's the issue of electricity. Hopefully, both those two will resolve by the end of next year. The new digital sector we talk about, we can't just go into Gwadar now and start, all these big ideas and stuff. We have to wait for that as well. Security concern is I don't know how to really put it. I've been to Gwadar. As an individual, I've found no security issues whatsoever. I mean, I can walk around, I can do anything. Some of the most hospitable. I mean, Pakistan is across the whole country. I have never had any issues. You can go around anywhere in the country. I can't say that for US or UK, but when it goes to Pakistan, I can go in any part of Pakistan and not feel threatened. Maybe I've not been to every single part, but that's how I feel. And wherever I've been, mashallah, it's been pretty good. Especially, but Gwadar itself. Talking about Gwadar, it's really scare. Somebody mentioned the other day that Pakistan is moving away from a security state into an economic state. What it means is that we worked really hard at becoming a secure state, or having the resources to provide security to the whole of country, to people, the investors, and so on and so forth. We moved away from that, and we're trying to become an economic state. So we are at that transition point. So we are at edge of that security concerns and moving into economics concerns. And inshallah, and over the next couple of years, we would have forgotten our security concerns. We would have 100% reliance on our security forces and to provide the security from external influences. So I don't see that as a problem. Investors shouldn't really be worried. Not now. 5-10 years ago maybe, but not now. Lack of information, that is probably our biggest failing. It took me ages and ages to find, and even this minutest thing. That people have invested in thousands of acres within Balochistan, and from Ormara all the way to Jeevning. Even this billion tree ventures or something. I love to know what I can grow in my tens of acres, or 30 acre of land here or there or whatever, or what else I can do. I'd love to know how to invest in Pakistan. I love to know the best way to send money across to Pakistan. I love to know so many things about Pakistan, how to invest, where to, how to buy something, how to sell something in Pakistan. There may be stuff, and please comment if there is stuff, because I've not been able to find much. And maybe that's an area that some shrewd Pakistani should look at getting into, is to providing those services at a reasonable. You go to China, and you will you go to a center to buy something. You will find people dedicated to helping you navigate through there. Um, Importing into Pakistan, exporting in from Pakistan, or setting up an industry, setting up a factory, whatever it is, there is very little out there that can help you. Um, and that accessibility of whether it's information or in Gwadar's case is being able to get to Gwadar. It's no mean feat. Um, that regional connectivity, or connectivity with the Middle Eastern state, or through different airlines and ventures and so on and so forth. But if the new airport is built in a year's time, and then we start talking about connectivity for another 2 years, we might as well start talking about it now, and have those things in place by the time those facilities hit the ground. And trust is a major issue, and that comes from a lack of knowledge of the area, of the people. And if we can help deliver that culture of information, everything becomes more accessible. People are responded to in a reasonable amount of time. For information, there are dedicated avenue people. I mean, how much does it cost a few workers sitting on the other end of um, a web portal or something, providing information, being proactive, giving you all that, and that builds the trust. Apologies, I don't know whether this would be helpful for a lot of people or not. I've done a lot of research in trying to get to where I am. I hope that it has been helpful. Thank you for watching. Allah Hafiz.